Right now, you are looking at the same country. This is Israel, a place where more than half the land is desert, where rain only falls in winter and only in one corner of the country. A place where ancient civilizations collapsed and empires crumbled because of water. And yet, somehow, this country now produces 20% more water than it needs. Not just surviving, overflowing. They didn't pray for rain. They didn't wait for clouds. They looked at the ocean, at their own sewage, at leaking pipes buried in desert sand, and they built something the world had never seen. This is the most audacious engineering story ever told. To understand what Israel pulled off, you need to understand what they were actually working with. Israel is roughly the size of New Jersey. More than 60% of its landmass is the Negev desert, a region so dry, so brutal, that even the Romans barely bothered settling it. Rain, when it falls, only falls in the north. The south, almost nothing, and it only falls in winter. The rest of the year, baking, relentless sun. The country's entire natural freshwater supply came from a single lake, the Sea of Galilee, also called Lake Kinneret, and 2 underground aquifers being pumped faster than nature could ever refill them. Here's what nobody tells you. When Israel was formally established in 1948, experts from around the world studied the land and reached a brutal conclusion. This country simply could not sustain its own population long term, not with farming, not with growth, not without water. The great Zionist pioneer Theodor Herzl actually wrote about water as early as 1902, years before the state even existed, because everyone already knew, without water, there is no future here. So what did they do? They didn't just build pipes, they rewrote the rules of water itself. It starts, like most revolutionary ideas, with a strange observation that nobody else thought to question. The year is 1933. A young Polish-born water engineer named Simcha Blass is supervising a well drilling project on a farm in what was then British-controlled Palestine. He's walking along a fence line of trees, all the same species, same age, same soil, when he notices something that stops him cold. One tree, dramatically taller than all the others, flourishing, enormous, growing in conditions that should have been impossible for it. Why? He kneels down and starts digging near its roots, and buried beneath the apparently dry surface, he finds it. A tiny crack in a metal pipe coupling. A pinhole leak, just a slow, steady drip of water feeding directly into the earth, forming an invisible underground pocket shaped like an onion, feeding the roots constantly. That tree was growing on almost nothing and winning. Blass would later write in his autobiography, 40 years later, "I became busy with other plans, but the drop of water that grew a gigantic tree refused to leave me." He filed it away in his mind. And then life got complicated. Over the next decade, Blass became the chief water engineer of Israel, building the very first pipeline into the Negev desert in 1946. He used pipes left over from wartime Britain, old fire hoses from the London Blitz, to get water to 11 new settlements in a single night. These settlements were so critical, they influenced the United Nations to include the Negev within the new state's borders. But the leaking tree never left him. In the late 1950s, when modern plastics finally became affordable, Blass came back to his obsession. He and his son, Yeshahayu Glameze, spent years in the lab, testing pressure, friction, flow rates, trying to turn a dripping pipe into a system. The breakthrough was elegant. Instead of tiny holes that clogged with dirt, water moved through longer, winding passageways inside a tube, slowing down through friction until it emerged as a perfect, measured drip, precisely timed, precisely placed. Drip irrigation was born. By 1965, Blass partnered with a desert kibbutz called Hatzerim, a collective in the middle of the Negev, to commercialize it, and they founded a company called Netafim. The name means droplets in Hebrew. Today, Netafim operates in over 100 countries. Their technology is feeding hundreds of millions of people, and it all started with one man staring at a single, inexplicably tall tree in the desert.
But drip irrigation alone wasn't enough. You can be the most efficient user of water in the world. If you don't have water to begin with, efficiency is irrelevant. Israel had one serious freshwater source, the Sea of Galilee in the north. The problem? Most of Israel, the cities, the farms, the desert, was in the center and south, hundreds of kilometers away. The solution was the National Water Carrier, one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects of the 20th century. Construction began in 1953. Engineers had to route water from the lake through a system of massive open canals, tunnels bored through mountains, giant pipes and pumping stations, 130 kilometers of engineered arteries carrying water to the center of the country and down toward the Negev. It was completed in 1964. At that time, it was one of the largest water transfer systems ever built. 80% of that water went straight to agriculture, feeding a nation that was growing faster than anyone had expected. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The National Water Carrier worked too well. Farms expanded, population grew, cities boomed. By the mid-1980s, agriculture was consuming 72% of all safe water in the country, and the aquifers were dropping at alarming rates. They'd built a system to survive, and now they were dying of their own success. By 2008, Israel was in its worst drought in at least 900 years. The Sea of Galilee, the heart of their entire water system, had dropped so dangerously low that engineers were watching what they grimly called the black line. This wasn't a metaphor. It was a literal elevation marker painted on monitoring equipment at the lake's shore. If water levels fell below this line, saltwater intrusion from underground would flood in and permanently destroy the lake's freshwater forever. They were inches from it. Water restrictions went nationwide. Farmers lost entire seasons of crops. The country that had survived in the desert for 60 years was staring at the real possibility of collapse. This was the moment that changed everything, because Israel had actually been building its escape hatch for years, quietly, expensively, and against enormous skepticism. Desalination. The idea of turning seawater into drinking water wasn't new, but doing it at the scale and price point that a whole country could live on, that was considered almost science fiction. In 1999, the Israeli government made the decision they would build not one, not two, but a fleet of massive desalination plants along the Mediterranean coast. And they would not stop until the country was free from dependence on rain entirely. Critics called it reckless, astronomically expensive, environmentally dangerous. Israel built it anyway. The Sorek desalination plant sits 15 kilometers south of Tel Aviv, right on the Mediterranean coast. From the outside, it looks like a sprawling industrial complex, almost unremarkable, almost boring. Inside, it looks like a spaceship. 50,000 vertical white cylinders, each 4 feet tall and 16 inches wide, hum and whir at a pressure equivalent to 70 times the weight of the Earth's atmosphere. Inside each cylinder, sheets of plastic membrane are wrapped around a central pipe, and those membranes are riddled with pores so tiny they are less than 1/100th the diameter of a human hair. Seawater is forced through those pores, salt stays behind, pure, clean water emerges on the other side. The plant was commissioned in 2013 and could produce 150 million cubic meters of drinking water per year, alone supplying 20% of Israel's total household water demand. The cost? 58 cents per 1,000 liters, a price that would have been considered impossible a generation earlier. Water produced by desalination today costs just a third of what it did in the 1990s. And Sorek 1 wasn't even the biggest anymore. Sorek 2, Bear Miriam, came online recently and can produce 670,000 cubic meters of clean water per day, setting a new world record for the lowest desalination cost ever achieved. Meanwhile, Israel was also doing something no other country had come close to. They were recycling 86% of all their wastewater, treated, cleaned, and piped to farms for irrigation. The second highest recycling rate in the world belongs to Spain at just 19%. The United States? Around 8%. Israel was doing what the rest of the world considered impossible, and they were doing it at scale. The Sea of Galilee began to rise, and then came the moment that still feels surreal to Israeli water engineers. In 2023, for the first time in history, Israel turned on a reverse pumping system, pushing surplus desalinated water back into the Sea of Galilee to refill it. A country that had nearly lost its only lake was now restoring it with ocean water they had manufactured themselves.
Here is where this story stops being about Israel and starts being about all of us. Right now, 25 countries, home to a quarter of the world's population, face what scientists classify as extreme water stress. They regularly consume 80% or more of all renewable water available to them. One serious drought could shut off the taps for hundreds of millions of people. The Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, even parts of the American West. And Israel's model, the combination of large-scale desalination, drip irrigation, and near-total wastewater recycling, is one of the only proven systems in the world that actually works. Netafim's drip technology now operates in over 100 countries. Israel's desalination companies, particularly ID Technologies, have built plants in California, India, and across the Middle East. The Israeli government regularly hosts training seminars for Palestinian and Jordanian water engineers, sharing the knowledge that kept them alive. And in 2021, Israel agreed to double its annual water supply to Jordan to 100 million cubic meters per year, selling water it manufactured from the sea to a neighbor that desperately needs it. A desert country exporting water. The country that experts said could never sustain itself now sustains others.
The story of Israel's water doesn't end here. Sorek 2 is already pushing the boundaries further. Engineers are working on extracting lithium and magnesium from the leftover brine, solar-powered desalination, next-generation membranes that work at half the energy. The desert isn't a problem to be tolerated, it's a challenge to be engineered. And somewhere, right now, there's probably another engineer walking past a row of trees, noticing that one of them looks just a little bit taller than all the others, wondering why. The next revolution might start the same way Simcha Blass's did. Not in a laboratory, not in a boardroom, but with someone who refused to stop asking questions. If you want to see more stories about the engineering and structures that quietly hold civilization together, subscribe to Grand Structures. We find the things that matter and tell you why they're extraordinary. Drop a comment below. What country's engineering story do you want us to cover next?